Good evening. I'm going to call to order this meeting of the Windale Town Board of Commissioners. Welcome all of you who are watching with us tonight. Our Pledge of Allegiance, we're going to be led by Police Chief Bill Carter.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Chief. For our invocation tonight from the Wendell Council of Churches, we're going to hear from Covenant Presbyterian Church, Lisa Cawley. Are you with us, ma'am? She's not on. Do you want to try to contact her real quick? Okay, just real quick. Okay, would someone from the board like to offer the invocation tonight?
I'll be happy to.
Okay.
All right, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for this day you bless us with and this time we can spend together in discussion and decision-making. Bless our discussions tonight that may be pleasing to you and in the goodwill and best interest of our citizens. Amen.
Thank you so much. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
move to approve the agenda.
All right, we have a motion to approve the agenda. Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach, he can't hear me, obviously. We'll come back to him. Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnaski,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. The public comment process of tonight and every night during the pandemic has been provided in advance of the meeting. The public had the opportunity to submit their written comments to the town clerk or were able to submit a request to participate via calling in the conference by emailing their name, address, and phone number to the clerk by Friday, March 19th at 5 p.m. The clerk will now unmute anyone who's requested to speak in the order that they called in, or the requests were received, and they, as always, have 3 minutes to speak. And we do have one signed up tonight, Christopher Boone. Are you with us, Mr. Boone? Mr. Boone, are you on the call?
Oh, yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you have 3 minutes. You can go ahead and get started.
Okay, all right, so hey, everybody, my name is Chris Boone. I'm a resident here in Windale. I was calling to inquire if there was a notion or a proposition based department in the town. I know that Wake Tech is coming, street, and they'll probably handle the bulk of that, but just something that town is in charge of, an office or a separate department, just to sort of get people.
Mr. Boone, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're breaking up. We've heard about half of what you've said. If you'd like to start again.
Can you hear me better now?
I can.
I'm gonna see if I can find it. Is it good now? Can you hear me now?
I can hear you.
Okay. Oh. All right, yeah. So what I wanted to do, did you want me to start over again, Mayor? Continue where I ended?
I would start again. We were hearing about every third word, so we're not real sure what we're saying.
Okay. All right. Let me see. I'm hoping now is better. I wanted to inquire about if there were propositions for, or if there were plans for a technology department in the town, with the town of Windale. something tech-focused, either an office or some space that will, really get Windale residents more comfortable with all of the technologies that are coming. So, of course, now we have Zoom and we have via video conference, so we're not physically in the front of another, but there are some pretty amazing opportunities going forward. I don't know if the town has an investment portfolio on behalf of the residents of the town, but I also think that would be a great idea. But I just wanted to propose a separate technology department, something beneficial to the people here. It wouldn't act as an IT support desk. That would be, another, maybe brief in its infancy stages, but initially it would be as this tech-focused, newsletter or something that's just keeping aware of what's going on, separate of the one that's already in creation now. And I have a bunch of ideas on that too, out of the town and converting some of the buildings down there to, maybe 3D printing facilities, or, Wake Forest University has one where they use for medical uses and things like that. But my initial purpose of the call was for something tech focused with the town of Windville.
Okay, Mr. Boone, I think we've lost you, but I think we have the gist of what you were asking. Maybe about the ability to have a facility that offered technological support to citizens. Is that what everybody kind of gathered from that?
That's what I got.
Okay, is that what you're thinking too? That's a really good idea. We'll give it some thought. Everything costs money, so we'll have to see what we can do and see if there's not a resource that we can offer to folks through a partnership or something. Yes.
And just for a plug, Mr. Boone, it sounds like you have ideas that would help the economic development of the town. So this is my plug to everyone that's listening, that we're getting ready to be taking applications for advisory boards, one of which is Economic Development Commission, and would love to see more folks apply.
All right, do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve the consent agenda.
All right, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tarnasky,
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Let's move into item number 4, recognitions, reports, and presentations. 4A is a presentation on the upcoming Americans with Disabilities Act Transition Plan Public Survey.
Hopefully this will be one of the quicker items on your agenda tonight. This is just a public notice that the town in the coming weeks will be presenting a survey to receive public input on the Americans with Disability Act and accessibility to public infrastructure and facilities and programs around the town. So I'm just letting y'all know that's forthcoming, and I'll provide you a copy of that before it goes public. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, item 4B is a presentation and decision on the Windale Historical Museum and supplemental funding request. And we're going to hear from Neil Conley of the Windale Historical Society. Good evening, Mr. Conley. Mr. Conley is not on the phone. I can see him in the picture.
Mr. Conley, Neil, did you call in on the Uber conference line?
Mr. Connolly, for us to hear you in the boardroom, I need you to call the Uber conference line that I emailed you earlier. Can you call that number real quick? It's 919-375-375. Is it 3? 375-6880. not 2, it's a 375, yes, sir.
While we're preparing for Mr. Conley. This is an agenda item request from the Windale Historical Society. Mr. Conley's going to give a presentation regarding a proposal for the Windale Museum floor plan, exhibits, their fundraising efforts to date. They did request supplemental funding in the amount of $25,000 from the town of Windale. As you recall, the town did buy the property and the building that they're currently renovating, and leases the property and building to the Windale Historical Society for $1 a year. It's basically a 20-year lease, 5-year terms with renewal, three 5-year renewals built in. They're responsible for all maintenance and operations, upkeep. The town has assisted with mowing the property while our crews are out there doing the adjoining property. Currently, in the current fiscal year budget, there's $500 for the Windale Historical Society that's typically pledged for the 4th of July event, which was not held this past year. In any other funding at this time, until we do the end-of-year budget request, would be a general fund reserve allocation. Mr. Conley, are you on now?
Yes, I am.
Great. Do you want me to cue yours and just tell me when to advance the slide, sir?
Okay. You want me to give a quick update on where we are?
Did you want to go through your presentation or just talk?
Yeah, the slides will be fine. I'd just like everybody to know that the Historical Society has been around since the 1960s, and we've raised over $80,000 to renovate and restore the house in private funds. And we've completed that phase, and now we're in the phase where we're doing the public exhibits and designing and constructing all of our exhibits. So that's kind of where we are now. If you want to show the slides, I'll give a quick update on what our plans are and what we're looking at doing. Okay, the Windale Historical Society, as I said, has been around since the 1960s. The Alec Wall House that Mark just referred to has been renovated and restored. We put new wiring in, we put track lights in, we've brought the building up to standard so that the public can access the building, and we've got handicapped accessibility and that kind of thing. Next slide, please. The floor plan, I know you probably can't see that, but I will give you a quick overview of it. Next slide. As people come in, they will receive a welcome and a background on the town of Windale. The Windale Historical Society was instrumental in purchasing and renovating the old post office. That is an adjunct facility to the Historical Society, and we will welcome people to the new facility. Next slide. We'll have a presentation on how Windale got its name, some background on that. Next. We'll have historical photographs and information about the town. Next. We will have one of the first things in the first gallery is a timeline on the history of Windale. It will start about 1880 and go through the early years, the lumber industry, the cotton
business, and into, agriculture. And, it will talk about the historic events that happened not only in Windale, but happened around the country, so people will have a reference so that they can identify what the major events in Windale were. It will go up through about the 1960s. Next slide. And it will include photographs and artifacts, the town charter, the news clippings, some things about the schools and about churches. Next slide. It will include things like the electric light bonds that were passed in Windale in 1914, a lot of historical information, and a lot of fun facts about Windale too. Next slide. The approach that we're taking is that we're going to do 7 vignettes in the facility. These vignettes will be up on a small stage, about an 8-inch riser or so. Next slide. And it will include things like information out front so people can tell about the history of Windale and about the progress on each of the topics. We will include artifacts. We will include important things that we found in the town of Windale. Next slide. We will include the historic trail. The Windale Historical Society was responsible for the designation of the historic trail in the downtown historic district. That will be one of the feature points. We will include a map of the town and a walking tour information. Next slide. We will include the downtown business district and the history of that. Next slide. Important homes in Windale. Next slide. And we will have an interactive display where people can look at where the homes are located and how they can get to each of the sites. Next slide. One of the first vignettes that people will encounter is the businesses of Windale. It will include an overview of some of the important businesses in town, primarily the banks, the post office, the drug stores, the department stores, and other restaurants that were downtown in Windale. Next slide. The shoe stores. The shoe store was downtown. Next slide. Windale Drug and Nowell's Drug Store both were important features in downtown Windale. Next slide. The bank and several banks in Windale. Next slide. The agriculture vignette will feature a little bit about the lumber industry, a little bit about cotton when it was important in Windale, and mostly about tobacco. And we've collected artifacts from the warehouses in Windale. We've got a timeline on the warehouses and when they were constructed. We've got posters and a lot of artifacts about when tobacco was ruled the economy of eastern Wake County. Next slide. We will have things like we have a stringing horse from a tobacco farm. We will have tobacco leaves, tobacco sticks. We will go over the history so that people can see what farming was really like in eastern Wake County. Next slide. The warehouses were important, 7 or 8 warehouses at one time. I think there were 9 warehouses in Windale. And Windale was in the early 1900s was the largest tobacco market in Wake County. Next slide. This is opening day on the tobacco market in Windale. Then the background of this slide, you can see the Methodist Church has now been moved up to Wilson Avenue down on Main Street. Next slide. The cotton was important. There were 2 cotton buyers in Windale and a cotton gin in Windale. Next slide. One of the vignettes will be on notable people from Windale and how they got their start in this town. Some of these people will include, next slide, R.B. Whitley was important. Wendell actually started the town. Next slide, fine. Bernie Todd was Mr. Tobacco in North Carolina, was a professor at NC State, and was known all across the state as probably the most influential tobacco expert maybe in the United States. Next slide. Jake May was a professional baseball pitcher, was well-known Windale resident. Next slide. And Greg Ellis played for Dallas Cowboys, was from Windale and went to East Wake High School. Next slide. Another topic will be veterans. We will take a look at the history of from World War I, World War II, the Korean War, Vietnam, and the contemporary wars that have been going on, the influence of veterans from Windale and their impact on the war. Next slide. We have lots of lists of veterans. We also have photographs of veterans that we will put in a computer slideshow. We will have artifacts and photographs and recruitment posters and a lot of military memorabilia that will go into the display. Next slide. This will be sort of how it will look. This gives you an idea of the type of exhibits that we're planning for the museum. Next slide. Civic and social organizations is another topic that we'll be covering. Everything from the Women's Club to the Volunteer Fire Department, the Rescue Squad. Next slide. One of the longest standing clubs in Windale is the Thursday Afternoon Club. We've got lots of information and history about the club. We've got programs and people that were involved in it, and it's an ongoing program that's been well over 100 years, active over 100 years in Windale. Next slide. Rotary Club and other clubs that are in Windale and their impact. Next slide. We will take a look at the churches in Windale. That will be one of our important vignettes, the spiritual life in the community and how it's affected Windale. We've identified 13 churches that are in our area, and these include churches, black churches, white churches, all denominations. Next slide. Everything from Hepzibah Church. Next slide. The Methodist Church, the Baptist Church, and then all the churches in the surrounding area. Next slide. We will have a number of artifacts from these churches that people will be able to look at, from hymnals and fans and programs, and a display of stained glass, photographs of stained glass windows and that kind of thing. Next slide. Schools certainly is an important topic that will be featured in one of our vignettes. We will cover all the schools in this area, again, the minority schools and the white schools. Windale School, next slide, goes from the history of Windale, the first school, the Rhodes School in Windale, through the next slide, to the Windale Graded School in 1911. That was torn down a few years ago. We talk about the gymnasium, the teachers, the students. Next slide. We've got all of the annuals from Windale School, and we've digitized these annuals. I might add here that we've also digitized the Gold Leaf Farmers that was the newspaper in Windale for years, and we put these in a database that people can search and find information out about the school and about the community. Next slide. We've got a lot of old photographs that we've identified, the Windale High School band from 1939. Next slide. We're doing a lot of information on sports. We have collected the trophy case, preserved the trophy case from Windale School, and we have about 20 or so trophies from the athletic teams over the years in Windale. We have examples of uniforms. We have basketballs and footballs and sports events that teams in Windale have won, and we will have those on display. Next slide. And then the last part of our presentation will be a donor recognition panel. that will include all the, special donors that made this happen. I would let you know that we're, right now, we're working on a, capital campaign. We're in the early phase of our campaign. Our goal is to raise $150,000 privately so that we can, design and construct the exhibits that I just showed. Our plan is to recruit 20 patrons from the community at $5,000 each for a total of $100,000. We've been working on this for about 3 weeks now, and we have 13 confirmed, and we're working with another 10 or so that, we're waiting for a response on. So we've raised so far about $65,000 toward the $150,000 that we need. We're also soliciting 2 benefactors at the $25,000 level that will get us over the $150,000, or to the $150,000 campaign goal. One of those benefactors, we're hoping that the town of Windale will be a sponsor. You've been a partner, the town's been a partner with the Historic Society for a long time, and we'd like to request that the town again come on board with the Historic Society and sponsor us as a benefactor. The funds that we raise will be used exclusively for exhibits and programs at the museum. Everybody that's on the museum board and we're all volunteers. There's no money spent on anything other than items for the museum. Our timeline is to we're in the process now. We had a community event this past Saturday where we are collecting artifacts and photographs from the community. We're going to have another one in about a month, and we again will collect artifacts. And our goal is to open the museum later in late summer, certainly by the Harvest Festival event in Windale. We want to have the museum open and be an integral part of the Harvest Festival. So with that said, I think we've submitted a formal written proposal to Mark, and it may be in your packet of information. We appreciate any consideration you might give us and any support that you might have, and I'll be glad to answer or try to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from the board?
I'm sorry,
Can you hear me now, Neil? Are there any questions from the board for Mr. Conley?
Madam Mayor, I don't have any questions.
Okay, well, thank you for your consideration. Let me know if you have any questions.
Go ahead.
Mr. Manager, on the agenda, this is marked for presentation and decision. Looking for a formal decision tonight, or do you need a motion?
No, it's the pleasure of the board. There does not have to be a decision tonight. The decision could be not to make a decision tonight if additional time or information is needed by the board. Feel free to take as much time as necessary.
Okay. In that case, I am going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion to table this item to the April 12th meeting to allow us all time to absorb this presentation, what I thought was a very good presentation, and allow us some time for discussion with town staff and explore funding and assistance options for the Historical Society for this.
All right, so we have a motion to table until April 12th to have some time to have some conversations about funding assistance for options possible for them. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski?
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
All right, passes unanimously. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move into our administrative items. Item 6A is a decision on a zoning text amendment to comply with Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes. Mr. Jones.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the board. Hope you're doing well tonight. Before you is the second batch of 160D text amendments. Specific action requested, motion to adopt the zoning text amendment to comply with 160D. The public hearing for this item was earlier this month, March 8th, 2021. Quickly, I'll provide a summary. I know you've all heard it before, but it's always good to have a recap of what's going on. Chapter 160D is essentially a new chapter that consolidates, let's see here, city and county regulations with enabling legislation specifically for development regulations. Chapter 160D provides a more logical organization for these regulations. It does not make major policy changes or shifts. However, it does provide many clarifying amendments and consensus reforms. These text amendments pertain to boards and land use administration. So the following items are proposed in the text amendments. One specifically was the broadened conflict of interest standards for governing boards and advisory boards. Specifically, one thing that we needed to add was the definition of familial relationship, because familial relationship was added as part of the language related to conflict of interest. Update the population, the ETJ population estimate, at least with each decennial census. In addition to that, advisory board memberships were inconsistent with the ETJ representation as it relates to proportion, so we needed to fix that. There are 4 boards impacted by these new rules. That is the Planning Board, Board of Adjustment, Appearance Commission, and Historic Preservation, if you have it. We don't have the Historic Preservation Commission, so only 3 boards were impacted. In addition to that, staff conflict of interest standards. So we had to add conflict of interest standards for staff. NOV, so notice of violations. Specifically, we must deliver to the permittee and the landowner if different. We also had an opportunity to expand how we deliver notice of violations via email. Talking to the planning board, we said that would not be the only means of notification. And finally, administrator had to certify the notice of violation for the file. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Are there any questions from the board? Yes, Commissioner Joyner?
Nikki, this is just to double check, but the notice of violation piece, I heard you say after talking with the planning board that it won't be solely electronic. Is that out of practice, or is that in the text, that it won't be solely electronic?
Today, we do not do anything electronic. We hand deliver and do a certified mail. I think the electronic language was added in there specifically probably because of COVID and just because it's new technology.
Okay. My desire was just to make sure that I'm happy with both, but want to make sure that both are included.
Certainly.
Madam Mayor, if you don't mind, one other comment. I'll just say that I appreciate staff combing through all of this to find all of these things. For those playing from home, this is essentially the General Assembly mandated us change a bunch of words, and they use their set of words, which don't necessarily match up with our set of words. And they also use different definitions for things that are spread all over our code. And as someone that works at the General Assembly for a living, I just want to say the General Assembly did a bad job doing this. I'm not super excited about this, or at least portions of this. It's just not, in my personal opinion, helpful in making some of the things abundantly transparent, and that's for as far as the staff and the conflict resolution. That said, we have absolutely no choice in how that is phrased, because that is what the General Assembly dictated, and that is what you see here is what Raleigh sent to us. So outside of that, Madam Mayor, if there's no other conversation, I'm happy to make a motion to approve.
All right, we have a motion to approve. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski,
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, that passes unanimously. Item 6B is the downtown facade grant application, submission for 17 North Main Street.
Thank you again. Specific action requested here is a decision on the facade grant application for 17 North Main Street. It is important to note that we have two applications in front of the board today, so when I show kind of an overview of where the location is, I'll show both 17 and 21 North Main Street. Again, just like to provide a quick overview of what the program kind of speaks to. So the goal of the grant is to provide financial incentives to business and property owners to assist in the preservation and the restoration of facades in the downtown business district, DMX district. The improvement should demonstrate a significant enhancement to the appearance and the aesthetic of a business. Currently, the grant amount is up to $5,000 per facade, and that's at a 50-50 match. Once grant funds expire for the fiscal year, applications shall continue to be forwarded for consideration, and that's all pending funds allocated by the Board of Commissioners. And very important to note here, grants will be based on allocated funds available in the budget. Again, quick overview of both locations. So you would know this specific business is Wine and Beer 101. That's 17 and 21 North Main Street, downtown. Here's a street view of those two facades. Typically, I don't do this, but I thought it'd be important to kind of show you all what the facades look like today. The applicant is Mr. Zach Fisher, who was on the phone with us tonight. The total estimated cost for 17 North Main for the new windows is $4,850. The amount applied for by the applicant for the downtown facade grant improvement program is the 50% of that, which is $2425. It's important to note on March 1st, 2021, the grant application was reviewed by the Appearance Commission, and they did, in fact, recommend denial of the application. I think they quoted that it did not provide a significant enhancement. It was more of a maintenance program for them. This was kind of what they generally said. So the fiscal impact here, if approved, the grant funding would originate from the general fund reserve or the savings from another line item that we may have in the budget. Staff notes that this application does, in fact, meet the minimum requirements of the current policy. Approval is based on the availability of funds for the program and whether the project meets the intent of the policy. Again, Mr. Fisher is on the phone, and I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any for me.
Are there any questions from the board? Comment?
Question for me. Nikki, my long-running understanding was that the upstairs of both 17 and 21 did not have a CO and could not get one because the upstairs wasn't sprinkled to fire code. Is that correct?
I do not know that answer. Mr. Fisher, can you answer that question?
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, so, and I did not hear your question, but the idea was when I submitted this application, and thanks for taking my time here with me. When I purchased the property last year, there was a lot of rotting wood, and so the picture that was just shown, I've already done a lot of facade improvements to that space. Replaced all of the lower level wood, repainted all the lower level, cleaned up all the lower level, and re-grouted all the brickwork, power washed the building, and basically used the bulk of the extra funds I had doing that facade improvement. The last thing I wanted to do on the front was replace these windows, and so that's why I had applied for the grant to get the windows replaced as well. So while that, and maybe I did that backwards. Maybe I should have waited and applied for the more noticeable changes to the rotting wood and flaking paint as opposed to just the windows. I also replaced the light fixtures out front that were rusty and old, just to try to beautify that whole piece of property there. So And that was kind of the intent here, was to continue that beautification process by replacing the windows as well.
The question from the commissioner was whether or not you're able to use the upstairs and have a certificate of occupancy for the upstairs or not, and if you are not, is that due to lack of sprinklers upstairs?
So upstairs, we met with the fire marshal several times upstairs, and as long as we maintain an occupancy level below 48, I believe was that threshold, we could have occupancy upstairs, and right now we have a photography studio upstairs, occupying the upstairs space, and then Joe is still running his business with the Wine and Beer 101 downstairs. Is that your question? I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing the full question, I think.
I believe that was the question. Are there any other questions from the board?
I have a question. Nikki, help me out here. Is it, I have to kind of agree with what the Appearance Commission said, and that replacing windows is more a maintenance issue to me. Is the applicant allowed to retroactively ask for a facade grant based on work that's already been done?
He can be in the process, she can be in the process of doing it.
Okay.
But Mr. Fisher has not put in the windows yet, correct, Mr. Fisher?
That's correct. I did the other work I've already done, but the other work's already completed, so I'm assuming I can't retroactively ask for the grant towards the work that had been previously completed.
Okay. And that was my question. He couldn't go back and retroactively ask for the work that's been done. Thank you.
Any other questions from the board, comments?
I have a comment, Madam Mayor, and I certainly appreciate Appearance Commission's thoughts on this. We certainly, even recently tasked them to take some harder looks at these types of things. I will say that this is a lower dollar amount than we've seen in recent history, and in my question about the upstairs is, it's been an objective mentioned in retreats by multiple members of the board to get the second story of downtown occupied in meaningful ways. While I was under the impression that, I guess long-term, there would be a different use in the upstairs, I am excited to see someone attempting to use this program to improve the second floor, getting us towards a mixed-use type of downtown. So I certainly don't have a problem with using this. I certainly think that this meets the qualifications as we just redrew them for the project. I will say that in saying that I'd also like to see some other downtown businesses improve their upstairs, and I think that this may be a good first step in that direction. But I did initially have a concern that the upstairs was not currently able to be occupied when we were redoing that water main. Or the reason for redoing the water main in the alley, from my recollection, was so that it could be sprinkled so that we could have occupancy on the second floor. So.
You're correct. That was what we had discussed.
So that was about the sprinkler again. Yeah, we had looked at adding a sprinkler to the second floor, and I think long-term that is a goal I would like to have, but the cost for sprinkling that was somewhere close to $100,000, and so at this point it didn't make a lot of sense to increase the occupancy load upstairs by adding sprinklers. It just was not something that was in my renovation budget currently, and so our focus is to just add for a use upstairs that was a very low occupancy that would not require those sprinklers.
Nikki, we have funded through this program other windows, have we not?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought we had, so, I mean, it might not be the pretty fancy thing that people want to see, but we have done that in the past, and I think it's important that we have continuity in how we approach it, and it is the facade. The windows are on facades. Are there any other comments from the board? Questions?
I'm sort of the same thinking that I mean, I understand it's probably not the most glamorous of updates. It is needed. It is on the front of the building, and you know we've replaced windows and doors and thresholds and things like that on other buildings. I'm not seeing too much of a difference. If anything, I'd like to get people's eyes moving upwards. I would like these buildings to be kept up as well as possible. And if the windows leak or aren't, effective, and, then, it could cause damage to the first floor. So, I don't really have an issue with using Facade Grant, money for this. So, I'll be in favor with this. And if no one else has any comments, I would like to make a motion.
Go for it.
Was that in the form of a motion?
Yes,
Make your motion.
motion to approve the Facade Grant request for, 17 North Main.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the facade grant application for 17 North Main. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right,
This is
Commissioner.
just for the one location, is that correct?
Yeah.
All in one, or is it, there was two different ones? Is this just for the, are we doing these separate, Nikki?
Yes, sir.
Okay, making sure.
And this one is 17, right?
17.
Yes.
That's correct.
North.
Yeah.
North.
All right, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
No.
Commissioner Tarnaski,
Aye.
Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, that passes 4-1.
Thank you.
Item 6C is a downtown facade grant application submission for 21 North Main Street.
Hello again. Specific action requested on this one, again, is a decision on the facade grant application for 21 North Main Street at this time. The applicant is Zach Fisher again. Estimated cost for the new windows is $4,145. 50% of that, which he applied for, is $2,072.50. Again, March 1st, the grant was reviewed by the Appearance Commission, and they, in fact, recommended denial. Again, if approved, the funding for the grant would originate from the General Fund Reserve or from savings in another line item that we may have, that we'll find. Staff recommendation here, staff notes that it does in fact meet the minimum requirements of the current policy. Approval is based on eligible funds.
Did we discuss or talk about property owners doing multiple facade grant requests or some sort of time period or whatever?
Yes, sir, your memory serves you well. We said separate addresses were allowed.
Okay.
I don't know if I'm mic'd or not still, but I apologize. I'd initially applied these as one grant because I did not realize they would be considered separate buildings. I mean, I know there's a separate address, but it's a single space inside, which is why I had applied for them both at the same time, initially as a single grant application, then I was advised to separate them into two addresses.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Madam Mayor, give me 1 second. I want to make sure I get the address correct. This is 21 North, is that right?
That's correct.
Motion to approve facade grant request for 21 North Main.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the facade grant application for 21 North Main Street. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
No.
Commissioner Tarnaski,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right, thank you, gentlemen.
Madam Mayor, before Nikki leaves, and now that we voted on this, Nikki, can we circle with Mr. Fisher to make sure he understands the National Historic District tax credits that he qualifies for if he does this in an appropriate manner?
Yes, sir. We actually just got some brochures. I'll make sure he gets one.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Item 6D is a
Thank you so much.
resolution requesting the North Carolina Department of Transportation to abandon maintenance of West Academy Street and accept the street as a town-maintained road.
This is my last item, I promise. Specific action requested here is motion to approve a resolution and authorize the town manager to request that the North Carolina Department of Transportation abandon maintenance and that we accept the road into the town street system. West Academy Street is the street that we're discussing tonight. That street is delineated in red right there, bounded by East Street to the west, and then Windale Boulevard to the east. So the segment of Academy Street that is west of Windale Boulevard, approximately 1,900 feet, is maintained by North Carolina Department of Transportation. The segment of Academy Street that is east of Windale Boulevard is maintained by us, approximately 2,650 feet. Part of the street that we're talking about along West Academy Street, we do in fact have plans to upgrade with the neighborhood improvement project. So staff believes that it makes sense for us to just be responsible for the entire length of Academy Street, since we're already maintaining the largest portion of it, and we're going to do some upgrades to the West Academy Street side. We just think it makes sense. North Carolina Department of Transportation requires the town manager to provide a written request on behalf of the town. So that would occur if we were approved tonight. So staff recommendation here is that the board adopt and the attached resolution requesting NCDOT to abandon the segment of Academy Street west of Windale Boulevard and accept the street into the town street system. Happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions for Mr. Jones from the board? Comments?
I would submit that NCDOT abandoned West Academy Street years ago.
That's kind of the whole point we're here.
Yeah, I know.
This makes it official.
Yeah, I mean,
I certainly appreciate us making positive steps in that area, and would just, I know the managers over there. You at home can't see what I can see. I can see the manager over there jotting down notes specifically anytime we talk about spending money. So I think this is a good time for you to make that note about the resurfacing program that we're clearly going to need. We're adding new roads on new development, but this is an example of the town stepping into a portion of town that has been left behind and trying to get things back on par. And certainly appreciate town staff work on it. And acknowledge that eventually we're going to have to pay the bill.
any other comments from the board?
Madam Mayor, motion to approve the attached resolution and authorize the town manager to request the NCDOT to abandon maintenance and accept the road into the town's street system.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the resolution and authorize the town manager to request the DOT to abandon maintenance and accept the road to the town of Windale street system. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
All right. That passes unanimously. Item 6E is a fee in lieu request for 228 feet of roadway improvements on Windale Boulevard by Raymond Drive. It's the Woodlands of Timber Lake Minor Subdivision. Mr. Coates.
Yep. Good evening, Mayor and Council. The next item before you is a resolution. Hold on 1 second. Is a fee in lieu request for 228 feet of roadway improvements along Wendell Boulevard at the intersection of Raymond Drive. This item is before you for discussion and action on the fee in lieu request related to roadway improvements for widening to accommodate a future bike lane along the 228 feet of Wendell Boulevard. Mr. Watson and this project have been before you for different fee in lieus previously. This area, the intersection of Raymond Drive and Wendell Boulevard, was originally anticipated to possibly be commercial development. That has not occurred, and so the applicant is, the last remaining little over an acre would be split into 2 lots for residential. In 2020, Mr. Watson paid this similar fee in lieu for a portion of the intersection of Raymond Drive and Wendell Boulevard. This last section is for 228 feet. Long-range transportation plan calls for a 5-foot bike lane. So Mr. Watson, instead of ripping the sidewalk, curb and gutter, out and putting in a 5-foot bike lane is requesting a fee in lieu for that construction cost and what it would cost for a 5-foot bike lane to be installed. Staff is recommending, this was reviewed by town engineer, and staff is recommending approval of the fee in lieu request at this time. And I can field any questions that you may have.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Coates on the board? Yes.
Mr. Coates, I have a couple of questions. Number one, the plot of land that's gonna be split and it's gonna become residential, are those driveways gonna enter directly onto Windale Boulevard?
They are, yes.
Okay, it's not ideal, and I think there have been some issues in the past with the houses that are in Timberlake subdivision that exit onto Windale Boulevard. So I have a couple reservations about that. I'm not sure how to fix that, but.
Yeah, currently in the CMX zoning district, single-family residential is a permitted use. Even though I think the intention early on when the development was started well over a decade ago was to have some commercial. That has not occurred, and so the single-family homes are a permitted use in that zoning district.
Okay. Second question is there already currently sidewalk across the front of this entire property?
Yes, the sidewalk is not in the full build-out space that it needs to be according to the transportation plan.
It's just not in the right place, but
Correct.
there is sidewalk there.
There is, yep.
Okay, and my third and final question is more of an overview question, and that is, when we accept fee in lieu, what is the process that we as the town basically remember that we accepted this project onto our own shoulders, so that in the future, when the project next door or across the street or whatever gets built out and we go, oh, hey, it's time for this, how do we remember that? How does the town do that? Is this marked, is this platted, or how is that? Because I don't want the public to think that we just take this money and it goes in a black hole and we go, oh, we can forget about that. So can you explain sort of that process?
Yeah, so when a fee in lieu request is submitted, we send everything to the engineering, AMT, our contract engineer, to review to make sure that the proposal is in line with what current standards are for building or tearing up, in this case, and rebuilding those materials like sidewalk, curb and gutter, and drainage would be. The fee in lieu request does come before you. Once it's approved, Mr. Watson would bring us the actual fee in lieu, and it's recorded through finance for the project, and we keep records in planning and finance for those amounts. Finance actually breaks it down into sidewalks and then everything else. So there's kind of two separate funds that are maintained by finance.
Okay.
That we can use on a future road improvement here or other future road improvements as well.
If I may clarify, the $40,701 received here does not have to be spent on this location. It can be spent on any eligible transportation expense by the town. We are just accepting that he paid what he would have paid to do the work. And so when that section of road is improved, that the town is responsible for that portion. And so we track where these are, and then there's not a developer that can come in later and have to pay again for the same improvement.
Okay. I understand that the dollars don't have to be spent in the exact same place. I was just making sure, I was just trying to get a better understanding of how we're keeping track of all of these little 100, 200-foot lengths of road that we've agreed, and what it is that trips that we're going to improve it. You know, it's like a neighboring project is going to widen, and we go, let's tag on to the end of that.
So any transportation project that's in our transportation plan, if the town is initiating the project, then the town, with whatever funding partner, let's say DOT, is widening a road to the end layout. We're funding all of that. Previous fee in lieu payments could go into it, or some other revenue source, but at the end of the day, we're responsible for building anything in the transportation plan, all of it, that's not built by the developer at time of development. So all of it's responsible. If it's not built, then, and the road improvement's happening, we're responsible.
Okay.
In this case, it's a DOT project. So if DOT was coming in and said, we want to widen Windale Boulevard at some point, or there's some future lap project to widen out to that end, we can identify areas that we've received, and we might be a local partner or contribute fee in lieu money towards that project to help implement the transportation plan of the town with that funding partner that's responsible for the road.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve the fee and lieu request for 228 feet of roadway improvements on Windale Boulevard by Raymond Drive.
All right, we have a motion to approve the fee in lieu request for 228 feet of roadway improvement on Windale Boulevard by Raymond Drive. Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner,
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach,
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz,
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski,
Aye.
and Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
That passes unanimously. Item F is an update to the resolution including the town of Windale within Wake County Fire District to reflect statutory taxing authority provided by General Statute 153A-307. Mr. Collins?
Good evening. So going back in time a little bit to 1998, the town of Windale on December 7th, 1998, adopted a resolution to include the municipal jurisdiction of Windale in the Wake County Fire Protection Service Tax District. The resolution adopted at that time provided that the county had the taxing authority up to a maximum of 10 cents on each 100 of taxable property. In exchange for that taxing property, Wake County contracts with the Windale Fire Department, Windale Homes, to provide fire protection service within the boundaries of the Windale Homes Fire District. That includes the town of Windale. So this is a separate assessed tax. Currently that rate is at 9.1 cents per $100 taxable value. There's a request at this point, given the cost of the new station, staffing increases, and apparatus costs, that will likely necessitate a tax rate above the current 10-cent maximum to generate sufficient funds to provide fire protection services in the Wake County district. At this point, Wake County staff is not intending to increase the tax rate to that a maximum of 15 cents that's allowed by statute, but incrementally over time having the flexibility to meet the service demands. At this time, when you evaluate the value our residents gain fiscally, financially, by participating in a larger district versus paying for fire service of our own, whether it's at 10 cents or 15, there's still a substantial savings to the taxpayers of Windale by participating in a larger district. Because of that, staff, from a financial standpoint, supports just setting it where the statutory authority lays at 15 cents that's set out, to be able to make sure that the county has a sufficient leverage to pay for the services needed, and that there's not a reduction in fire service due to an artificially constrained rate. Darrell Alford of Wake County is on the call and be happy to answer any questions. The request tonight is to approve an updated resolution that just changes the authority of Wake County to use the statutory authority. It does not actually increase a rate. Be clear with that. Happy to answer any questions. If you have any questions beyond my pay grade, I'll quickly call on Daryl.
All right, questions from the board?
I have a couple, Madam Mayor. And Mark, these may be better targeted for Daryl if he's on the line. So there's not and I appreciate the fact there's not an initial intent. This is just to give the county the authority that's given to them under general statute.
Mark, this is Daryl. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, the question was, this request is just to enable the statutory authority to be increased. It's not raising the rate. And I think there was a question about intent. So if there's an intent or an expectation of the county, understanding that it's before y'all's budget process and there's a lot of consideration by county management and the Wake County Board of Commissioners prior to anything being adopted.
Yes, sir. Mayor Gray, may I have just a second to provide some context to all this?
Sure, go ahead.
So, at this point in time, all the fire departments are in the service tax district. The town of Windale would be the only one that joined by resolution back in '99 as a municipal goes. So the remainder of the municipal departments do a cost share where there are dual components. So a fire department has a contract, i.e. with Garner and with the county. So we hold that whole contract. We have been under the 10-cent window since 1999. Each department has to submit a budget in which we scrutinize and go over, just as you do with the town of Windale, with your departments. We do the same thing at the county level. We are forecasting right now in our budget model to have a 1.17 cent tax increase that would carry us over the 10-cent threshold. I, myself, as well as the county manager and the Board of Commissioners are very cognizant of tax increases. So, again, this does not set us up where we're going to 15 right out of the gate. As a matter of fact, our model, our 7-year capital model and 7-year budget model, doesn't even get us to but 12 and a half out to 2028, 2030. We do not figure in reval years, and that seems to kind of balance the scale, where we can go backwards a little bit before we go forwards. Did that answer your question?
It did, Daryl, and so my only other question is, the manager just highlighted for us why being a part of a larger tax district is beneficial to Wendell, and Commissioner Boyette and I are certainly aware of that. We spent a couple of days at the General Assembly trying to protect our ability to provide fire service in this way a couple of years ago. Can you tell us about the station, let's see, I'm going to get the name of this specific plan wrong, but the station redeployment or station location plan that's coming about and the changes we're apt to see?
I think you're probably referring to the long-range plan that the county started with the administrative committee back about 2.5 years ago. We were to present that long-range plan, and actually we're calling it Guiding Principles and Standards for a Long-Range Plan. We had that on tap for the Fire Commission last Thursday night in a oversight by county staff that was not put on the public agenda, therefore we could not vote on it. So that will be on the April 16th special call Fire Commission meeting, at which time we will get a recommendation for that guiding principles and standards for long-range plan along with the budget. That plan is complete. It was 2 years in the making. It sets standards of 7 minutes. Again, if approved, it's a recommendation right now, but 7-minute travel time for a first arriving unit, and then 12-minute for the balance of 16 on like structure fires. So each type of fire call is broken out, where it talks about how many people should be on a call and how long it should take them to get there. Once we get that approved and we start data collection, that will tell us, are we meeting those standards in all areas of unincorporated Wake County, and therefore will drive decision-making for future stations. Did that answer your question?
It did, sir. My question was primarily intended to allow you to say to the county commissioners, if you were ever asked, if someone had asked about other stations and whether or not they should have been closed, that when you were in Windale and you asked to ask for this resolution that we brought up, that we certainly are paying attention to, donut hole districts in the center of Raleigh that the county is continuing to have to fund, regardless of Raleigh, having fire trucks right beside them or sometimes literally in the bay next to them. I'd also just say that appreciative of you being here and congratulations on your new position. Certainly happy to have someone from the east side there. And to the rest of the board, I would echo the manager's comments. It's kind of cool seeing the history here, but former Mayor Conley, Mr. Collins and former Mayor Jones certainly got the town of Windale a good deal in 1998. This would increase the county's ability to make that deal last a little bit longer, and I would certainly recommend it to the rest of the body. Happy to make that in the form of a motion.
Before we make a motion, I don't have any questions, but I can shine a little bit of a different light on this. I joined the Windale Fire Department in 2000, not long after this agreement was done. When I got there, Windale was basically a volunteer department, and was using older equipment and utilized a lot of manpower that people left their jobs, their paying jobs, to come back and provide fire service to the town of Windale. We had some part-time people, and we had a few full-time people. The fact that the fire department's board of directors and the county have been able to basically transition the fire service and fire protection in Windale and surrounding areas to the staffing levels and professionalism that we have now, without having to have gone up on the fire tax rate until now, boggles my mind. The fire department and the county have done so much to provide quality fire service to the town of Windale at an absolute bargain. And the fact that it's just now coming up, that we need to adjust this rate a little bit, or adjust the ceiling on this rate a little bit, just goes to show just how hard fire chiefs, boards, and fire commission members, as well as county staff, town staff, and everyone involved has done such a great job to do that. And maybe I'm tooting my own horn just a little bit, but I don't make budgeting decisions at the fire department, so I feel like I just wanted to give those accolades, and I just wanted to point out that I think the town is in a much better place now than if the town had taken over fire service at some earlier point. So I'm in favor of this.
Any other comments from the board? You want to restate your motion, Commissioner Joyner? Did you want to make a motion?
Yes, ma'am. One more comment to Mr. Alford before he gets off the phone. We certainly could use those 3 battalion chief positions that I'm sure you're reevaluating in the budget. And with that, I'd make a motion to adopt the resolution. Including the town of Windale within the Wake County Fire Service tax district.
So we have a motion to adopt the resolution and update the taxing authority of Windale Fire District to reflect statutory authority. Is that okay? Is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner.
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach.
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz.
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski.
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette.
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor Gray.
Thank you very much. Item 6G is a request to reallocate funds in the fiscal year 2021 for the purchase of park property and the retirement of debt. Mr. Collins.
Thank you. So sometimes in evaluating the upcoming budget, you also find opportunities in the current fiscal year. And finance staff found one such opportunity that we're requesting approval on at this time tonight. And let me... Okay, and this, so back in October 17th, the town purchased approximately 23 acres of land for the Hollybrook Road Neighborhood Park. On either side of the road, there were 2 parcels there. Prior to that approval, the board approved the use of funding from the general fund reserve to pay for the purchase of the property, which is $141,315 and 63 cents. Currently, the town has available fee in lieu of open space funding in the amount of $172,093.92, obviously surpassing the $141,315. So rather than use general fund reserve funds to pay for this in the current fiscal year, First Town is just requesting to set that money aside for the moment and use the fee in lieu open space funds, which have to be used for this purpose anyway in this fiscal year. The second part of this transaction deals with, okay, if we're not expending the funding from the general fund reserve, and that's what's allocated right now is to spend that funding, is there a better use of that funding that can meet another policy approved policy direction for use of general fund reserve that helps with future budgets and debt load? And so there's currently 2 bank loans, one $104,158.63 from KS Bank, and one $39,414.46 loan from BB&T. Retiring that debt now, rather than paying it out over the next couple years, does 2 things. One, it saves your taxpayers the money of the final interest payments over that time period. While interest is lower at the end, there's still money there. The second thing is it frees up those expenses from future fiscal years. So it allows that funding that would have paid this debt payment in future years to be used on the larger payment for like the town hall debt and help solve the next couple years budget issues. So we're using open space funds to provide open space, and then we're using general fund reserve to retire debt early, which is a policy allowed use of general fund reserve to help have a more structurally sound budget next year, which you may recall from our previous budget message and in our current budget. This coming fiscal year is the tough challenge for us to solve structurally. So that finance found a solution to help do a couple things there with this. Happy to take any questions you may have at this time.
Any questions from the board for the manager?
Yeah, Mark, what was the amount you said it was in the open space fee in lieu of?
$172,093.92.
And you said that had to be used this fiscal year, or just be?
No, it can be used any time,
okay,
but it has to be for an open space park acquisition use.
Okay.
Such as what we're doing this fiscal year.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Madam Mayor, just a comment. we often hear, Wendell needs this or Wendell needs that. But we definitely always hear Wendell doesn't need higher taxes. Appreciate finance staff and management, paying attention even at the end of a fiscal year, even when it's not necessarily the top priority, to make sure that, one, we're saving money, and two, just want to highlight that fee in lieu of, as Commissioner Boyette highlighted a few minutes ago for us on the sidewalks, but this fee in lieu of funds are directed, and as a result of development where open space could not be attained and fee in lieu of was used, we are now paying off a new park so that we can be shovel-ready next year. Certainly think this is a good use of the program, and appreciate staff being on their toes to recognize this opportunity.
Yeah, it excites me a lot to see us as we purchase park properties. I think it's very important, and it also is exciting to me. And we talk about fee in lieu a lot, and whenever we take those funds from sidewalks and we make new sidewalks or park open space, that's a good thing, and I like it when people can see that happening and see the process work and work the right way. So that's very exciting. All right, do I have a
Madam
motion?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Motion to approve the payment in lieu for open space for the acquisition of the Hollybrook Road Park properties and reallocation of the assigned general fund reserve for the early retirement of debt in fiscal year 2021.
All right, we have a motion to approve the use of payment in lieu for open space for the acquisition of the Hollybrook Road Park property and the reallocation of assigned general fund reserve for the early retirement of debt in fiscal year 2021. Is that an accurate statement of your motion?
That is what I said, Mayor.
All right, is there any discussion on the motion? All right, Commissioner Joyner?
Aye.
Commissioner Deloach?
Aye.
Commissioner Lutz?
Aye.
Commissioner Tornaski?
Aye.
And Commissioner Boyette?
Aye.
Thank you.
I like seeing people's money working for them. All right, let's move on to Section 7, Other Business. 7A is an update on board committees by town board members. And I am first up. Let me find my Campo notes. Our agenda this past Campo meeting appeared short, but each individual item was very lengthy. So it was a particularly long meeting. We held 2 public hearings. First, on the Wake County Transit Plan. This was a joint public hearing with the Go Triangle Board of Trustees and the Campo Executive Board. We also held a second public hearing on Amendment Number 4 to Fiscal Year 2020 to 2029 Transportation Improvement Program, the TIP program. Let's see. We received an update on the Fiscal Year 2022 Draft Wake Transit Work Plan. We received an update on various Campo projects and funding for them. We received several informational items. One was on the Fiscal Year 2021 operating budget, one on Fiscal Year 2021 member shares, dues. We received project updates on the Executive Board, the March project updates for the Executive Board and the Executive Board public engagement updates for March 2021, both for 2021. And we received several reports that we always get from the Executive Director, the various divisions of the DOT, Rail Division, Turnpike Authority, et cetera. And it was a great meeting, very long. All right, the next one is the Technical Review Committee. Mayor Pro Tem Boyette.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Several projects came before TRC, a lot of them in the very early stages, with changes to come, I'm sure. So I won't get too in-depth on them, but I will mention them. The first one is Bojangles. Yes, right, I said Bojangles on Windale Falls Parkway, a short biscuit throw from the fire station. So we're excited to see that commercial development. Also, a very large apartment complex on Roseville Road at I-87 across from the high school. Very excited to see some multifamily, as well as a veterinarian office on Wendell Falls Parkway.
Okay, thank you. All right, we'll move into our commissioners' reports, and as is our habit, we'll start with Commissioner Joyner.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I've done it twice tonight, but I want to continue to thank town staff for their help. Historically, had the benefit of having worked in other towns and been around other towns, and you see a peak at the beginning of the year, and you see a peak in July, and then you see dead space. That's certainly not the case in Windale, and I always appreciate seeing the cost savings. In that vein, I want to thank Parks and Rec staff. One, my daughter is doing the skills and drills, so I got to witness firsthand how Parks and Rec is adapting during these times to put on awesome programming for kids that are certainly enjoying it. And this weekend, which marked about a year of since we initially started doing shutdowns related to COVID, I got to hear like the most beautiful sound at Wendell Park as I was riding through on the golf cart, the crack of a softball bat in the park. It was awesome to see everyone spread out, but tournaments getting on. So kudos to Parks and Rec as they have continued to adapt and provide programs throughout this time period. Want to invite folks, Windale United Methodist Church, on Easter Sunday we'll be doing church at the farm, right out just past the golf course at the church property there. A very cool way to experience Easter and a good socially distanced space. I've enjoyed it and want to invite anyone who may be looking for a place to experience that. Feel free to come on out. And I would be remiss if I did not highlight, because I have banged my hand on the desk, and happy to have Mayor Pro Tem Boyette back in the building tonight. This is his first time, to the best of my knowledge, in a year. Certainly nice to be able to lean over and ask him if he wants to go first on a fire department issue or if he wants me to. Happy to have him back. With that, Phase 4 is opening for vaccinations. I got mine a week or so ago. So if you need assistance with that, feel free to reach out. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Commissioner Boyette?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the warm welcome.
I'm sorry, I just went to your spot. I'll get to you. We're having musical chairs tonight. Go ahead, Commissioner Boyette.
Okay. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Camera angle.
Oh, sorry.
That's why we go that way, just so everyone knows, so that they'll know how to do it with the camera.
I got you. It's very good to be back. I'm glad to be back here, and I appreciate Commissioner DeLoach giving up his chair. I'm sure he's not here for other reasons, but it is good to be back. As most of you probably know, I'm not really super active on social media, and I don't want to get into, I know the mayor is very well versed in social media and has an excellent presence. But it has been brought to my attention that, there's been a lot of discussion recently about sort of the direction Windale's heading. And I've heard a lot of feedback about, this is changing and that's changing. And it seemed like for years and years and years, people would complain to us that Windale never changes, nothing changes, nothing's coming, nothing's changing, nothing's doing. And then when things start changing, you start hearing, well, this isn't the place that we chose, this isn't the, what we wanted. And, I understand both. I've lived in Windale my whole life, or right outside of Windale. And so, I've seen, all these changes take place in the 30 or so years that I've been alive. So, I understand where the long-timers come from, but I also see just how many people want to come and live in Windale. And I see how the town's growing, and I can't help but think that Windale's a desirable place to be for a multitude of reasons. And if we weren't, then we wouldn't be growing. And, that growing is always going to cause some pain and some heartburn for some. And new people come in and they bring new ideas and they bring new things. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It doesn't have to change who the town is, but it is going to change who is in the town and how many people are in the town. Development's coming. We're in one of the fastest growing counties in the nation. And whenever the census numbers finally show up, I wouldn't be surprised if we are growing at an even faster clip. And so I just ask everybody to be patient and understand that as far as the town's concerned, I've said this numerous times before, you know, a lot of people think that it's basically like we're driving a car up here. And that's kind of true. I like to think that at the very least we have a steering wheel, but we don't really have a gas and a brake. Development comes, businesses come, commercial comes, and a lot of that's driven by factors that the town proper doesn't really have too much control over. And the best we can do is just try to steer on the best path. Sometimes it feels like the only thing I have hold of is the turn signal. And we're just yelling out the window, trying to do the best we can. And so I would just like people to just take a step back and understand that everybody in town wants what's best for the town. And we don't always have to agree on what's best for the town. But I think Windale is better for it, for having the discussion and having the debate. And I would just ask, I know everybody's pent up, everybody's ready to get out and go back to concerts and go back to restaurants and go back and do everything. Everybody's got a lot of pent up energy. And I would just ask that everybody direct it in useful ways, and not tear each other down. So that's all I had in there.
Thank you. Commissioner Lutz?
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of points tonight. First off, it is nice to have Commissioner Boyette back here. When he took over as Mayor Pro Tem, I thought I was getting a break from making motions for a while, and then he went virtual on us, and he somehow fell back in my lap. So I was glad to share the load a little bit. I like Commissioner Joyner was at the park over the weekend with my T-ball team having our first practice after what seemed like a long 2 years, and it was just wonderful. It was the park staff has done such a good job as far as keeping things organized and being cautious and proactive and still trying to do as much as we can. And I could tell that it was, you know, parents, kids, everybody was just happy to be out there and the nice weather, and it was a little cool playing. So it was kudos to our park staff, and like I said, just keep being patient where we are, but we're getting there. Lastly, as regards to the Facade Grant, I was the lone one voting no, and I reached out to the applicant to kind of let him know that I'm always very careful of how we're spending our town dollars, and I draw my line a little differently than some of the others may in how we use it for facade grants. I love the facade grants. I love fixing up downtown buildings, and that was, I told him that was just a matter of just where I drew my line, and honest to goodness, if he'd applied before he did the lights and the board repair and everything else, I would have had no problem with the grant. So, but I just want to reach out to him and let him know there was, I was always happy for people who are taking investments in our town, the time, the money, the risk, and so I do appreciate that very much. That's all, Mayor.
Commissioner Tarnowski?
No comments, Madam Mayor. Thanks.
All right, Commissioner Deloach? You're up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The only thing I want to say is welcome back to Mayor Pro Tem Boyette. Sorry I was not there for the return, and appreciate y'all's patience tonight, and I will look forward to seeing you soon.
All right, thank you. Real quickly, they asked me to please remind you all that we're still accepting applications for the 2021 Farmers Market. The seasons are going to take place, well, the season this year will be on Saturdays from 8 to 12, May 1st to October 2nd. You can attend every single one of them as a vendor, or you can just do one. So it's wide open for you. We hope that you would consider participating, and the applications and information is on the town website. Also, it's come up a couple of times tonight, and I just want to remind everybody again, we are accepting applications for the Town of Windale Citizen Advisory Boards. There are spaces on all of them, I believe. You can get that information on the town website as well. The applications are due by Friday, May 21st, and the appointments will be made in June. I want to congratulate Wendell Creative Arts and Science Magnet Elementary School for being named a 2020 Merit School of Excellence by the Magnet Schools of America. They get these kinds of accolades every year. A lot of our schools do. But this particular year, I think it's very telling, and it means a lot, and I think they should be particularly proud this year. It's been a very hard year especially for our schools and our school kids and parents and teachers and administration. So congratulations to all of you. That's an award for everyone there. They were also recognized as a top 20 merit school in the country. That's a big deal. So if you see anyone from Windale Elementary School, which is what I always call them, I tried to include their long name in here tonight, congratulate them and thank them for everything that they do for our kids here in Windale, and I certainly intend to do the same. I do want to make one more quick comment that I hadn't planned, that I'm kind of echoing Commissioner Boyette. The social media stuff, it looks like I'm on there a lot, but it's really kind of hit or miss, and I do catch things real fast and then I'm back off. But I have had a run this last couple of weeks of people calling me and texting me and telling me all the mean things that are on there. And I just, honestly, I don't want to read it. It's not pleasant to read unkind things about yourself. So, I know that if it bothers me, it bothers others. We're very quick here in this past year to take each other's inventory, and I think we need to stop. So that's my little reminder. If you need to say unkind things about me, I can take it, but please quit doing it to others. We need to all band together and be kind to one another and be the good thing that happens in people's days right now instead of the bad thing. And there's a lot of people, if you have time to be on there and criticizing every little thing about someone, you have time to check on your elderly neighbor, you have time to maybe cut their grass if they can't do that, or drag those horrible brown cans up for them, or call them and tell them about the horrible dumpster enclosures. Have a conversation with them, because I'm sure they'd like to talk to you more than they would like to hear you or read you write about these things on social media. So, we need to do a better job at taking care of one another. And right now, we're not doing great at that. So be kind to one another. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Adjourn.